back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here. On this Wednesday, July 17th, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, let's get into what we are going to talk about today. So, we do have some news that we'll get into at the start of the show, and that is the fact that Brandon Aiyuk has now requested a trade from the 49ers, so we'll get into that. I'll recap last night's Hard Knocks episode with the Giants, get into that. You know, some of the stuff that was covered during the episode. And then in the third part of the show, it kind of got bumped to the third segment, and that is continuing my quarterback rankings for each division. We'll be doing the NFC South today. Then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about the trade rumors surrounding Davante Adams. His agent, I think, shut those rumors down, so we'll get into that as well. Because there's connections with the Jets, and, you know, there's some people in the media saying that it's going to happen. So we'll get into all that. And then we'll talk about Bill Belichick getting called out for joining these different shows for this upcoming season, joining the media. So, we'll get, you know, because he's with the McAfee show. He's going to be making appearances on the Pat McAfee show. He's going to be on the Manning cast. He's going to be on the Inside the NFL. So I wanted to get into that as well. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Brandon Aiyuk requesting a trade. So this happened yesterday. It was really around the time, you know, I was pretty much done editing all the stuff from yesterday. And now we'll see what ends up happening out of this. This is something that's been ongoing this entire offseason. This is something that I've talked about a lot on the show, is, you know, the back and forth between the 49ers and Aiyuk. The 49ers want Aiyuk back, but, you know, Aiyuk with the social media posts and you know, they did have a meeting, but it didn't really amount to anything a couple weeks ago. And now this is the latest news on that, is that he has now requested a trade. And we'll see what ends up happening from this. Will he end up getting traded before the season? And, you know, are the 49ers, you know, going to trade him, or are they going to try to work something out? But this is kind of how I felt, you know, as, you know, things have kind of transpired over the course of the offseason. I really haven't had confidence that these two sides were going to be able to get things done here. And I talked about the impact that this could have if Aiyuk ends up leaving before the season starts. Now, I think the 49ers, with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, I think they'll still be all right. But, you know, this will have an impact on the team. This will have an impact on Brock Purdy. You know, Aiyuk and Brock Purdy have done well together since Brock Purdy took over as the starter. And now you lose that player, it's going to affect you. Now, they do have some young guys. You know, Ricky Pearsall they drafted. You know, so he's going to have to step in and take on a larger role. And you got Juwan Jennings as well. So guys are going to have to step up if, you know, he ends up getting traded, which it seems like that's going to happen. But then again, you know, T. Higgins requested a trade. Now, it's a different situation because they ended up franchise tagging him, and, you know, he's going to play under the franchise tag. You know, Aiyuk is still under his rookie contract. So, It's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. But, there's some connections with the Commanders. I mean, he's been talking to Jane Daniels a lot. He's been watching film on the Commanders. The Steelers, there's a connection there, a team that needs a wide receiver. I talked about it recently. There are a lot of teams that need receivers. And, we'll see where he ends up if he is traded. But my thing is this, and for a lot of players, they're going to take money over winning. And the 49ers, there's not too many teams that are Super Bowl contenders like the Niners are. You got Kansas City. I mean, you throw the Ravens in there. The Ravens are a team I think that could use a wide receiver. I throw the Lions in there. There's, and I guess, maybe the Eagles. But there's not that many teams that you'd say are in prime position to, get to a Super Bowl and win it. I just need some teams there. I mean, there's probably some other teams. But really, the Chiefs have won the last two. But anyways, the Chiefs could use him, but the Niners aren't trading him to the Chiefs. Unless the Chiefs, were like... I think the Chiefs are fine at receiver right now. I don't think it's not like last year. But there's not that many teams that, are in a position where they can get to a Super Bowl. And if Aiyuk leaves, the Commanders right now, they're in a rebuild. The Steelers, they got a good roster, but I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender. There's question marks at the quarterback position. And yeah, I think there's some question marks with Brock Purdy. But all Brock Purdy has done since he's become the starter is win. And you really want to leave that situation right now? I don't know. But at the end of the day, he wants to get paid. He wants the big contract. Now, I don't know what contract he's going to get. I don't think he deserves the contract Justin Jefferson got. But he's going to get his money elsewhere. I just the way things have unfolded this offseason, it just hasn't looked like it. Nothing's really gone in a positive direction here. And it's unfortunate because, the 49ers trade him, you're losing a big piece of your offense. Now, I've said this. I think the 49ers are a good organization where, yeah, they're gonna deal with it. But, in the short term, it definitely is going to affect them. So we do have a comment from Anthony Manzano. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He said, who do you think is going to be the favorite to trade for Aiyuk? So I said, the Commanders, there's a connection there because him and Jane Daniels were teammates. The Steelers are another team as well. The Ravens are a team that I think needs a receiver, but I don't think they're going to trade for him. I think right now that's probably the top two is the Commanders and the Steelers. Heck, I'd love to see my team go after him, the Giants. But I don't think they have the room. But that I would say that right now the Commanders, I think, are like the top favorite at the moment, and that would be good for them. Add him opposite of Terry McLaurin. Give Jaden Daniels another weapon, and that helps accelerate the growth of your young quarterback, if he's indeed the guy. So, I guess that'd be a good fit. This is an honest question. If Miami can't get a deal done with Tyreek, would it make sense for them to trade for Aiyuk? Trade for Aiyuk? I guess. But, I don't know. You got Jalen Waddle there. I mean, maybe they'd look to the draft to bring in another receiver. But, I mean, it seems like Tyreek wants to stay in Miami, and they might be able to get a deal done there. So, I don't know. Actually, well, yeah, if you're talking about right now, yeah, probably not. Probably not. Probably not going to Miami. I like I said, I think it's either going to be, right now, it looks like it could be Washington, because they tried to trade for him at the NFL draft. So, maybe they make another attempt, and they get him this time around. But, yeah, I don't see that. I think the Tyreek stuff will get resolved. I don't think he's going to Miami. But who knows? I mean, it could be a team I didn't even mention. Houston. Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy if he ended up on Houston with Diggs but they got plenty of receivers. They're fine at that position. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it just, I mean, at least we have some, as the Kelsey brothers say on their New Heights podcast, at least we have new news, on the Aiyuk stuff. I mean, again, it's just him requesting a trade. I mean, until he goes somewhere, we're still going to be playing the waiting game. But at least it's some kind of news, because we've been kind of just talking about the same stuff. But yeah, it's the 49ers, I think, are going to have to, and I think they already have, but, they got to prepare for life without Brandon Aiyuk. And like I said, they still have enough playmakers on this team where I don't think it might affect them. Well, it will affect them, but I think they'll be able to withstand it. And I'm watching The Receiver on Netflix, and I did get up to the part where Deebo Samuel got hurt, and they struggled for a few games. How now with Brandon Aiyuk probably not being on the team for a whole season, how is that going to impact this team? Because he's a big part of what they do. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Brandon Aiyuk has requested a trade from the Niners, and we will see if he gets traded. Where is he going to end up? It's going to be something to keep an eye on. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about Episode 3 of Hard Knocks with the New York Giants. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the second part of the show, we're going to recap the new episode of Hard Knocks featuring the New York Giants. So it was kind of just, the episode that just included everything with free agency, what the Giants did this offseason pertaining to that. We'll get to the draft at some point. But, yeah, so we, it was an interesting episode. But the main thing, of course, was Saquon Barkley. Now, there was some confusion because it seemed like that the Giants did, in fact, make an offer to Saquon Now, they made previous offers that he declined, but there was some confusion on if they made an official offer here, because if you remember, Saquon was saying they never offered him anything. So Joe Schoen talked to Saquon's agent, Ed Berry, and they went over some numbers. And Joe Schoen offered a hypothetical to Berry, and he was saying, he like repeated the numbers back to Berry, and he said, 3 years, $12.5 million a year, $25 million guaranteed. Now, Saquon got a little bit more than that. I think he got $26 million guaranteed from the Eagles. I think it was 37. I think it was 37.7. The whole contract. And but when Shane repeated those numbers back and said, would he sign this? Then he didn't really get a direct answer from Saquon's agent. Now, we didn't hear any more phone calls from Saquon, but it just it ended up not working out. And they were talking about it, and they said that supposedly the Eagles were out on Saquon, and that the Bears were driving up the price because the Bears were supposedly in on Saquon. But then there was a second phone call with Berry, and I guess he told Joe Schoen what what the current offer was, the best offer was, and Schoen was like, yeah, we're not going, we're out on that. So once the price got driven up a little bit more, the Giants were out, and he ended up going to the Eagles. And well, Joe Schoen said, is he going to a team within the division so he can mentally prepare himself for it? And of course, it did end up happening. He did go to the Eagles. So yeah, the Giants, in that moment, they didn't offer Saquon a contract, but they offered him previous contracts that he just didn't take. And it's Saquon may have said he wanted to be a Giant, but I don't think he wanted to be a Giant as much as people were led to believe, because he signed with the Eagles. So Saquon was right. The Giants did not offer him a contract at that moment, but they did offer him previous contracts that he didn't accept. And I think, you had John Mara in the episode, and he was saying, he wouldn't be able to sleep if he signed with the Eagles. Well, he did. And you know what? I think Joe Schoen did the right thing. I've said this, a lot, but the Giants had other needs. They went after, they were going, they two of the three offensive linemen that they were pursuing, they ended up getting, John Runyon. They also offered Robert Hunt a contract, the guard from the Dolphins who ended up signing with the Panthers, and then Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders, who I just kept saying the other offensive lineman a lot when I bring up the signings by the Giants. But yeah, so the Giants got Illuminor and John Runyon. A tackle and and John Runyon who could play both guard positions, which is what the Giants need, an interior lineman. So you know what? The Giants did the right thing. And they were actually bidding with the Jets for John Runyon and also Tyrod Taylor. And the Giants ended up losing out on Tyrod, but they got John Runyon. They gave those guys, they had their offers, and then they kind of upped the ante a little bit to get those guys, because Illuminor, the Cardinals were supposedly in on him as well, and the Giants were able to get him. And then they went, they were talking about either Singletary or Swift, the familiarity in Buffalo. Brian Dable was saying, they want, his nickname is Motor, so they got Singletary. And then the Brian Burns trade ended up happening, and that was big. So you know what? Again, I am completely okay with the Giants saying, you know what? We don't need to overpay for a running back. Now, is Saquon an important part of the Giants' offense? Absolutely. He was the best offensive player. He's been the best offensive player, really, since he got to New York. But you know what? The Giants, they have so many other needs. And Brian Dable sent the text to Joe Schoen saying we need guys that can protect the quarterback and to get after the quarterback, something along the lines of that. And he's absolutely correct, because the Giants for years really have not had a pass rush. since really the Super Bowl days. I mean, you could talk about 2016, but, it's really since the Super Bowl years. And they have failed to build this offensive line. I mean, from Eric Flowers and signing guys like Nate Solder to try to fix the offensive line, it just has not worked out. But they did the right thing here. And you could say the Giants are, a lost organization because it's kind of been like that for a while. There's been a few, years where they've had success. Like I said, 2016 and, a couple years ago when they made the playoffs and it looked like they were on the come up. And then last year they took a massive step back. But you know what? The way Joe Shane and Brian Dable talk, I feel like they have an idea. I feel like they're going in a direction. They're going in the right direction. I think the problem is, and don't get me wrong, not every move that they've made has been great. Like, for example, paying Daniel Jones. But they did not inherit a great roster from the last regime. And I feel like they really, the cap situation, they've tried their best. And I feel like they can still be the guys here. But they got to have results. We got to see results, because if we don't, they're going to be out of a job. It's just as simple as that. But they did the right thing, letting Saquon walk. Now, is Devin Singletary the same player as Saquon? No, he's not. But had a decent year with the Texans. And, if this offensive line can, be a good run-blocking offensive line, Singletary could have a good year. And you look at the Giants' pass catchers, I don't think their receiving core is bad. They got a lot of young guys. Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, and now Malik Neighbors. These guys can grow. Wan'Dale Robinson, looked pretty good last year. Jalen Hyatt, we got to see some more consistency at the quarterback position because he's that deep ball guy. Same thing with Malik Neighbors. So I think the Giants are heading in the right direction. And it's weird to say that. And then on top of that, look at the defense. You had Brian Burns to go along with Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. That is something to be excited about if you're a Giant fan, is that defensive line. They got young guys in the secondary. I think this defense can be good. Now, it's going to be different because you got Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator now instead of Wink Martindale. But it's going to be a different, it's going to be a different look. They're not going to be blitzing constantly because that's what, Wink loved to do is blitz. I think the defensive line is going to be good. I'm hopeful for that. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Giants are going to be very good this year, but I think there'll be improvement. The problem is the quarterback position. Now, we did get a little bit of that because, they were bidding on Tyrod. They wanted to bring Tyrod back. They were talking about all the backups. They talked about Minshew and how much he was going to cost. Yeah, the Giants didn't have room for that. But they talked about Drew Lock, Tyrod, and Brian Dable said Tyrod's better than all the backup quarterbacks that they were discussing. Now, they did lose out on Tyrod, and, of course, Gardner Minshew was going to cost a lot, so, didn't get him, which I'm okay with. So they opted to sign Drew Lock. And, he's still young. He's athletic. That's what they, brought up. And, he won that game against the Eagles on Monday night last year. I don't think that's a bad signing. They got him on a cheap deal. Because you don't know what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. And they kind of have to believe in Daniel Jones because, they ended up not getting a quarterback. So, what are we going to have? Tommy DeVito be the quarterback for the whole year? If you wanted to just cut ties with him. And this very well could be Daniel Jones' last shot with the Giants. And do I want him to go out there and prove me wrong? Yeah. Absolutely. But I just don't see it. Not just from, his play on the field, but also just from, durability aspect. He gets hurt. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But, yeah, I mean, they are doing everything they can to try to put Daniel Jones in a better situation. And it starts up front. So maybe with better protection, now you got a number one wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. Maybe he ends up going out there and balling out. But I'm not counting on it because, he was a rookie in 2019. We're in 2024 now. And we're still having the conversations of whether he's the guy or not. I don't know. But that's basically my thoughts on the episode. I thought it was a good episode. But yeah, so the Giants, they never made Saquon an offer like in, around the time that he signed with the Eagles. But they had the previous offers that they gave him and he didn't take them. So it just comes down to, yeah, maybe he wanted to go elsewhere. And the Eagles are a better situation. So, but yeah, it just made it seem like the Giants were going to offer Saquon something, or they did offer Saquon something, and Saquon went and lied. But that ended up not happening. That was not the case. Giants did not make him an offer. They heard the numbers and they were like, we're not going there. We're not going there. We're out. So I have no problem with what the Giants did. They have a lot of issues, and they hopefully solved some of those issues this offseason. So let me know what you guys think about the episode. Before we go to break, though, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will continue our rankings of each quarterback in each division. So we will get into the NFC South quarterback rankings that I have when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to rank the quarterbacks in the NFC South, so let's get into that. So the NFC South, interesting division. There was one major change this offseason, and that was Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons, signing with the Falcons. So, it's going to be interesting. The division's definitely going to be more competitive. Of course, you had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the division last year. Baker Mayfield had a solid year. And Bryce Young gets us started off. So I have him at number 4. Now, he is coming off of a very disappointing rookie season. Now, I think he will have a better year. I think he'll have it because, it's hard to do any worse than last year. They went out and they signed a couple of offensive linemen. They got him a couple of receivers both through the draft and via trade. They also added a running back through the draft as well. And I think there's some talk that Miles Sanders could end up getting cut, which was a very disappointing signing by the Panthers. But I think Bryce, and now you got a new coach, Dave Canales, who did very well with Baker Mayfield last year. So, you know what? I think Bryce Young will have a better year, but I'm still going to put him at 4. But like I said, I'm expecting him to have a better year. I still think that I still don't think the Panthers are going to be very good this year, but that's just my opinion. But I kind of like the other quarterbacks better in this division than I do Bryce Young, but we'll see. It's 1 year, but got to see results this year. And players have kind of backed up Bryce Young. It was the Panthers just were a mess last year, so maybe in year 2, they get better results, and I'm expecting that to some extent, but we'll have to wait and see. So I got him at 4. At 3, these rankings here in this division are kind of hard. Because I feel like you could kind of switch around some guys. Like, you can make the argument you could put Derek Carr, at 2 or even at 1. Did have a strong finish to the season last year. Very up and down for the Saints. And Derek Carr got banged up a couple times during the year as well. And this could be his last year in New Orleans, at least from, some of the stuff I was reading, that maybe they cut ties with him after this year. But, and we got him in the chat saying at 3. Yeah, I got him at 3. But I did say that, also, what kind of username is just him? But I get it. Derek Carr did finish the year strong, but I don't know. The Saints, it's kind of like that with the Buccaneers too. But Derek Carr did finish the year strong, but I don't know. I'm gonna put him at 3. Like I said, I think it's close with the other quarterbacks. I don't know. The Saints are one of those teams where I just don't really know what to expect out of them. Like, yeah, Derek Carr did finish. And he said, because that's what I am, him. Okay, all right, fair enough. But anyways, the Saints did finish the year strong. And, if they could have won at least one more game, they would have made the playoffs. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to expect out of the Saints. I feel like they should have gotten a different head coach. Dennis Allen just is not the guy for me. But, it's a new year now. So all that momentum, that's kind of out the window. And actually, Derek Carr, he finished barely under 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. They put together a good season. But I don't know. I still got him at 3 right now. But listen, that could change. But at number 2, I got Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's coming off of a year, 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. He got paid this offseason. I kind of like his supporting cast a little bit more than I do the Saints right now. And look, the Saints got Kamara, but, he's getting older. Chris Olave is a good player. And, you got Rashid Shaheed as well. But I don't know. I feel like, for me, the Buccaneers with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and, Rachaad White as well. I like his Baker Mayfield supporting cast a little bit better than I do with Derek Carr. But right here between 2 and 3, you could definitely, put Carr at 2, put Baker at 3. It's close. And listen, I was happy for Baker Mayfield last year. I thought he played really well. The Bucs, it looked like they weren't going to go anywhere in the middle part of the season, but started playing better, propelled the Buccaneers to yet another playoff berth, another division title, and, they won a playoff game. He's asking, where'd you put Tua? Well, I started doing these quarterback rankings for each division. So right now, we're on the NFC South. Tomorrow's going to be the NFC West. So then, Friday. No, not Friday. Wait. Yes, Friday. Friday we'll be getting into the AFC East. Oh, it's about to be Jalen Hurts. So I actually did put Jalen Hurts at 1. I put Dak at 2. And again, it's kind of similar to Baker and Derek Carr. I like Jalen Hurts' supporting cast better than I do Dak's. I feel like Dallas just did not get any better. The Eagles adding Saquon, I feel like that's just going to open up the offense more for the Eagles. So, I mean, the Cowboys, I feel like they're going to be kind of one-dimensional this year where Dak's going to have to throw over the ball. And kind of has been like that, since it really became Dak's team after Zeke started to decline and then left, for a year and now is back. The Cowboys are going to be throwing the ball a lot. The Eagles are going to be, it could be a balanced offense. And also and Dak could take off and run with it, but, Jalen Hurts is, one of the best mobile quarterbacks in the league. So, I put Jalen Hurts at 1 there. But, yeah, back to this, though. Again, it's a new year. So, Baker and the Bucs could definitely take a step back. I'm a little worried about that. But, I see him playing well again. The Buccaneers, they ran it back. They brought all their guys back. They re-signed Mike Evans. They re-signed Baker, of course. The guys on defense as well. But yeah, the 2 and 3 spots are very close. You could definitely make the argument for either or. And then Bryce Young is 4. Sorry, Bryce Young, but he could go out there and prove me wrong, and I hope he does. Because the Panthers, I mean, they got to be kicking themselves a little bit because they got Bryce Young, but look at what C.J. Stroud did last year. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so Baker Mayfield at 2. But like I said, you could very easily, change it up, put Carr at 2, Baker at 3. But I got Kirk Cousins at 1. I think he has, now we talk about supporting cast. I think he has a very good supporting cast. I think the running game, that's going to help him out. You got Kyle Pitts, who, supposedly the Falcons are moving him around to different positions. So, maybe this is the year that Kyle Pitts, goes off. You got Drake London. He could take another step forward, now with Kirk Cousins here. They signed Darnell Mooney, and they traded for Rondell Moore. So, I mean, I guess, you would still take I think you'd still take Mike Evans and Chris Godwin over, the pass catchers for the Falcons. I mean, I know they're getting older, and, we haven't seen Drake London's full potential just yet. Maybe with Kirk Cousins, he unlocks that. But you know what? I think with the healthy Kirk Cousins here, I think the Falcons are the best team in the division, and I think Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the division. Before Kirk Cousins got hurt, he was putting together a really good season. The Vikings started to play better, and it looked like they were going to make a run and, maybe get in as a wild card team. Now, that ended up not happening, of course, because he unfortunately tore his Achilles, and that kind of derailed the Vikings season, although, Josh Dobbs came in and gave them hope, but that quickly evaporated. I think if he's healthy, he's going to put up good numbers, and I think, the Falcons could win this division. Now, I want the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield to, say not so fast, but, I think if Kirk Cousins is healthy, this team can very easily be the best team in the division. Now, I think there's some concern on the defensive side of the ball, but like I said, if Kirk Cousins is healthy, Kirk Cousins is going to put up Kirk Cousins numbers, and that's why I put him at 1. So, like I said, you could probably make the argument you could put Derek Carr at 1, maybe Baker at 1 because of the season he's coming off of. I mean, Kirk Cousins is coming off of a major injury, so we don't really know how he's going to be. But, he's a pocket passer, so he's not really going to be using his legs that much unless he absolutely has to. So if he gets good protection, you got the young weapons on offense, and you can rely upon your running game as well, like I said. I think he'll do okay. So just to kind of reiterate, so Bryce Young at 4, Derek Carr 3, Baker Mayfield 2, and Kirk Cousins at 1. Again, it's close. Ultimately, if you got a healthy Kirk Cousins, I think he's going to be the best quarterback in the division. But that's just my opinion. Tomorrow, like I said, we'll be doing the NFC West, which will be interesting. Yeah, these are my rankings for the NFC South. So let me know what you guys think about these rankings. Who would you put at one? Who would you put at one? You know, how would you rank them? I think it's really like 2 and 3. That's the one that, kind of stir up some controversy here in the chat. Maybe you put Derek Carr higher, you put Baker at 3. I mean, Derek Carr actually, like, again, looking at his numbers, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's not bad. It's not bad. But I don't think that tells the full story. There was a lot of inconsistencies throughout the year. Maybe that strong finish carries over into the season, but again, only time will tell. So we are going to take our next break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about Davante Adams. We'll talk about the trade rumors. His agent, spoke out about those rumors, kind of shut him down. So we'll get into that when we return from our next break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to talk about the Davante Adams trade rumors more and, just kind of get into that. So, actually, I do have a graphic to put up because, we got to take down the slideshow here. But, Davante Adams did talk about how Aaron Rodgers has been in his ear and he's trying to recruit him. So I did want to put up the stats that him and Rodgers, put together. These are just his stats with Aaron Rodgers because there were times where, Rodgers was hurt. These are his stats with Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback with the Packers. So I just wanted to have that up as we discuss this. But yeah, so Davante Adams did bring up how, Rodgers has kind of been in his ear trying to recruit him. Jets players are on board with that. And you have numerous people in the media coming out, and we'll talk about the media in the next segment when we're talking about Bill Belichick. But yeah, you have people in the media, Boomer Esiason, Dan Orlovsky. You have all these guys talking about how, they could see a trade happening. But for me at the moment, I just don't see it. I think Davante Adams is going to end up staying with the Raiders. Now, if he does go to the Jets, that is a game changer because he still is that dude. He is still one of the best receivers in the NFL. And I think you can make the argument he still is the best receiver in the NFL. And no offense to Justin Jefferson, but I don't know. I felt like with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, was the best receiver. Now, he went to the Raiders, and with Derek Carr still put up great numbers, and then, still put up good numbers last year. But it just, watching receiver, that game against the Lions with Garoppolo, I of course, saw it during the season, but, watching it again, the frustration was boiling over. It was very, Davante Adams was wide open on that one pass that Garoppolo threw to him down the sideline, and he just completely missed him, targeting him in the end zone and that getting intercepted. It was a tough watch. And, there's a lot of times, Davante Adams is wide open and he just doesn't get the ball. Now you got Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I think you'd rather play with, Aaron Rodgers, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Boomer Esiason said something along the lines of where there's smoke, there's fire. So, he sees a trade going down. Dan Orlovsky says, I think Davante Adams plays for the Jets this season. But who knows? And I think his agents, they shut that down. Time is running out before the season starts if a deal is to be made. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like a trade is going to happen, but that's not, people in the media would disagree. You know, they think that he can end up playing for the Jets. And that, like I said, that is a game changer if he ended up getting traded to the Jets. You know, because that helps out Garrett Wilson. I mean, that helps out Aaron Rodgers. That gives Aaron Rodgers another weapon to add to this offense. Yeah, so the agents did recently state that the rumors were baseless. Unfounded speculation. This is from Adam Schefter reporting on what the agent said. But again, you know, just because his agents speak out and say that, you know, they're not true, doesn't mean it can't happen. So, I mean, you know what? We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. But it's definitely a possibility. And I'll just leave it at that. Now, I kind of lean, like I said, I lean more towards he won't be traded and he's going to stay put. But I'm still open to the idea of, yeah, it's a possibility that he could end up being traded. Definitely is. And that would definitely elevate the Jets. Now, even if they got Davante Adams, I still wouldn't sit here and be like, well, I think the Jets, you know, are going to win the Super Bowl. No. I think they could. I think they could win with the roster they have now. But I just, and it's hard for me to say because, you know, I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan, one of my favorite players growing up, but it's been a long time since that last Super Bowl. And you had Davante Adams. Those 2 years you were winning MVPs. And it didn't amount to anything. You know, he ended up losing in the championship game at home, which Rodgers talked about a lot, saying they got to get one of those games there at Lambeau, and they did. But they lost to Tom Brady. And then they lose 13-10 to the 49ers. And the 49ers didn't put up an offensive touchdown that whole game. It was only on a blocked punt. That could have been the year, right? 2021 could have been the year. But unfortunately, it was not the case. And, yeah, then Davante Adams ended up leaving, going to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr. And it's interesting because they wanted that to happen. Derek Carr and Davante Adams, they talked about playing together in the NFL. And that was the reason why he ended up with the Raiders. But then the Raiders cut ties with Derek Carr. Now, you know, that had to do with Josh McDaniels because he wanted his guy. He brings in Garoppolo. But, you know, if Antonio Pierce was the head coach, probably be different. Probably still have Derek Carr. But that was not the case. So, you know, and again, there was more than just that. You know, his mom gets to watch him play. His family gets to watch him play. You know, in Vegas. You know, it's hard to do that when, you know, you're playing in Lambeau. You're playing in Green Bay. You know, his family's, you know, it's closer to his family. So that's another positive, too. You know, if you go to the Jets, I mean, you're on the East Coast. So, got a comment from Rick Diaz. He says, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. Well, I did talk about them to start the show. He said, what do you think about the San Francisco 49ers are going to do this season? They might surprise a lot of teams. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't tell if that's a troll or if you're being serious. We did talk about the 49ers, though, at the start of the show. So if you want to go back and watch me talk about Brandon Aiyuk requesting a trade, make sure to do that. The 49ers are going to be very good. They're going to be very good. And they have been very good. I think that's going to continue. Regardless if Aiyuk is there or not, they're still going to be very good. Okay, now he says, talking about the New York Jets. The New York Jets might be in the AFC Championship game. We may be with the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh. So Chargers Jets championship game. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I think the Chargers, they can be good this year with Harbaugh now. I think Harbaugh's going to have an immediate impact. I think they could be a wild card team, but I don't see AFC championship game for them this year. Well, I just came into your show. Yeah, no, I understand. I just thought the 49ers surprising people was interesting because I don't really think them being good is a surprise. But Jets Chargers. I mean, that would be an interesting championship game, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, with if you get Devontae Adams, the Jets, maybe that just that helps them out even more. I'd be curious to see how the betting odds would change if the Jets got Devontae Adams. But who knows? It's just all speculation. Again, the agents, they kind of shut it down, but could be happening. The Jets have tried. I mean, the Jets have tried numerous times to try to get Devontae Adams with Rodgers there. I mean, they're trying to make Packers East over there with they got Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Tim Boyle. Why don't they go out and sign? I mean, if the Jets suffer any injuries to the offensive line, maybe they give Bakhtiari a call. It's kind of funny. But again, I did bring this up on a previous show. But you had, Tom Brady goes to Tampa. He recruits Gronkowski, Antonio Brown. They sign Leonard Fournette. Rodgers, he's like, get me Randall Cobb, get me Allen Lazard, get me Tim Boyle. And listen, I love Randall Cobb, but Randall Cobb, his best years are behind him. Now, I didn't think Allen Lazard was going to have the fall off that he did, and I think with Rodgers back for a whole year, Lazard is going to be back to being a productive wide receiver, but he's going to have to earn it because he kind of slipped down the depth chart. They bring in Mike Williams. They drafted Corley, and you got some other guys as well. I mean, of course you have Garrett Wilson, but we know he's the number one. Lazard's going to have to earn it, So, but if you bring in Devontae Adams now. But again, that's all speculation. The Philadelphia Eagles are not going to do nothing. I don't see that happening at all. I disagree with that. I think the Eagles are going to be good this year. I think the Eagles are going to be very good this year. You could look. I mean, listen, if they continue that trend from last year, then that wasn't a fluke. But I think they got too much talent on that team. I think they're going to be very good. And then he also says the NFC West is up for grabs. Any given game, any given team could win that. I'm going to leave it like that. I don't know about that. I think that's the 49ers division to lose. And Seattle's got a new head coach. The Cardinals are still, trying to work themselves back to, at least being a playoff contender. I think with Kyler Murray playing for a whole season, they're going to be better. But, I think they still got some things to do. And then you got the Rams. I think the Rams are the second best team in the division. You got Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, both healthy. Puka Nacua again, year 2. Kyron Williams, year 2. Now, Aaron Donald not being there, that hurts. But you know what? Sean McVay is a great coach. They're going to figure it out. I think they'll be a playoff team this year. But I don't think the division's up for grabs. I think the Niners are the clear-cut favorite. But again, new year, you never know. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about Devontae Adams. The agents kind of shut things down. I think he said he wants to stay with the Raiders. But again, who knows? Anything can happen. But it would be crazy if he does end up getting traded. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Devontae Adams will end up on the Jets? Let me know in the comments. Because Aaron Rodgers has said, he can't wait to play with him again. But that could also mean he goes to Vegas and plays for the Raiders. So when we get back from our next break, we will talk about Bill Belichick. Andrew Perloff had some strong comments on Belichick, calling him a hypocrite for joining the media, basically. So I wanted to get into that, what he had to say, give you my thoughts. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about some comments made by Andrew Perloff, who kind of was, calling out Bill Belichick, calling him a hypocrite for, pursuing a career, at least for now, in media with the NFL. And this is what he had to say. So he's a co-host of the Maggie and Perloff show on SiriusXM, and he is calling out Belichick, calling him a hypocrite. So this is, some of the things that he said. He said, networks have to stop hiring Bill Belichick, someone who openly mocked the media for 2 decades as head coach of the New England Patriots shouldn't be able to walk right in and get multiple media jobs. He never said anything useful as an NFL coach, and now he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid talk. As brilliant as Belichick is, find someone else. That's, pretty aggressive there. He talked about the press conference from 2014 where he just kept repeating himself and saying we're on to Cincinnati. But here's the thing. That became iconic. And you know what ended up happening? The Patriots won the Super Bowl that year for the first time in a decade. He also said, of course, Belichick's insight has gravity. Just don't pretend the last 20 years was a mirage. And he's so eager to educate us on the game. Belichick wants to make money and land a coaching job. Now, and that's the last thing he said. So the last part I don't disagree with, and this was something that we talked about in the production meeting, one of our production meetings, is he's doing this because, he wants to keep him in the public eye and, say, hey, I can still coach. And I think he should still be coaching because, it's Bill Belichick. I know things, fizzled out in New England, but, I think he still deserves another shot. He doesn't deserve to, not be on the sidelines this year. And he is one of the greatest coaches of all time, whether you agree with it or not. Part of 2 separate dynasties with the Patriots, and it's part of the teams with the Giants, and back in the day. It's just I don't know. I don't know why he doesn't have a job, but yeah, it's strong comments there. And here's the thing: I think Belichick does have something to offer, and you know what? I think he does like to kind of show off his wisdom of the game. And the thing is, he's gotten positive feedback. There are people, saying, hey, they like this version of Belichick. He's looser. He's not this, people think he's, a grump, and talking to the media and, going through the motions with the press conferences. It was different. Now, for me, I didn't watch a lot of it. And he also, again, I mentioned this too, there was that special with, Rich Eisen and Chris Collinsworth. They put together that all-time team, and showing off his wisdom there on the game, breaking down players. I think Belichick does have something to offer. Because, again, one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not the greatest coach of all time. He does have something to offer. And you know what? It's not just Belichick. Look at some of the other guys. You know, J.J. Watt's got a media job. Matt Ryan. You know, Jason Kelsey earlier this offseason. He's going to be doing Monday Night Countdown. You know, these media conglomerates, they just pick these former athletes up and give them jobs. It's not just Belichick. There's other people. There's other players, coaches. They you know, it's not just him. So you shouldn't just have a complaint with Belichick. It's everywhere. Now, I get it. You know, Belichick, you know, going through the motions in the press conferences, not really at times giving very insightful answers. But you know what? I think it's different. Now, I know media is all connected, but it's different when you're on a panel as opposed to, you know, when you're a reporter and you're asking questions. It's kind of different because he's not that side of the media. He's going to be on a panel with the McAfee show, with Inside the NFL, and he, you know, giving perspectives on certain things. It's not, he's going to be sitting in a press conference interviewing Gerard Mayo. But I get it. It's all connected. So, yeah, he is joining the media, but not that side of the media. So, I mean, I guess I get that, but again, it's like I just said, he's joining that side of the media. He's not going to be in press conferences interviewing coaches. But you know, and he wants a job. You know, he wants to be coaching still. And you know, is he going to take advantage of this year and kind of reflect and say, you know what, I got to change my ways a little bit. Because you know what, the last couple of years in New England, it was rough. Especially the last one. Downward spiral. At least, you know, the previous season, yeah, they finished with a losing record, but they went 8-9. They didn't finish 4-13 like they did in 2023. You know, even when Tom Brady left, like, yeah, they, again, didn't finish with a winning record, but they went 7-9. I mean, yeah, it's a bad record, but it's not, like, horrendous. 4-13, like, the wheels just fell off. And it was funny because, you know, when I did a podcast with my friend, you know, we haven't done one in a long time, but leading up to the 2022 season, we thought the Patriots were going to be awful. And they ended up finishing 8-9. And then the following year, they finished 4-13. So we were like a year off of the fall off. We were a year early. But, yeah, it didn't work out. And I was definitely surprised that he didn't get a job. And you know what? He might get a job next year. I mean, who knows? It could be the Cowboys, which I think would be an interesting dynamic with him and Jerry Jones. I kind of don't want to see that. I don't really want to see him in the NFC East, but, you know, could go there. I mean, he's going to go to a team that's competing for a title, that has a chance to do that, that has the talent for it. But I don't know. It depends on what's going to be available. I mean, you would figure, like I just said, the Cowboys. You figure the Cowboys, you know, that job's going to be open because, you know, Mike McCarthy doesn't seem like he's happy with Jerry Jones right now. So that's a possibility. You know, if the Eagles fall off again and Nick Sirianni gets fired, well, that's another opportunity right there. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, strong comments by Perloff with the media stuff. I do think Belichick does have stuff to offer. And you know what? He's a name. So he's going to get picked up by, you know, McAfee and Inside the NFL, Manningcast. I mean, you know, even if it wasn't those, he definitely got offers from other places as well. Belichick's gonna find his way on our television screens, and we're gonna see him a lot. And you know what? If he gets back into coaching, I mean, he is older, but he gets back into coaching and maybe coaches for a few more years and then calls it quits. Yeah, probably might see him again. It's not going anywhere. Even if he's not coaching, we will see him on TV. But now is he going to get back on the sidelines? That's what we got to wait and see for. But yeah, I think Belichick does have something to offer. Now, yeah, some people might not find him entertaining, but he's gotten positive feedback. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't really watched him that closely, so I'm not really like one way or the other. I'm kind of just like, all right, Bill Belichick is doing this. But there's people that say he's been great. So yeah, so let me know what you guys think about that, though. How do you feel about what Pertloff had to say? Again, some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. Like, again, yeah, he's doing it because he wants a coaching job, but he's got stuff to offer. Guy's been around the game forever. And it's not like I'm a Bill Belichick fan, but, got to give him some respect, for what he was able to do over the course of his coaching career. But, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. So that's pretty much it for the show for today. We did cover some, some things here, some rumors and, trade requests and hard knocks. So, there was stuff to talk about today. We'll continue the quarterback rankings. That'll probably slide back. I mean, depending on if anything happens, like, over the next, 24 hours, Devontae Adams somehow got traded or Aiyuk got traded. That would make, the top of the show, the first segment. But the quarterback rankings will slide back up. But, because of the Hard Knocks episode and Aiyuk's trade request, that kind of got bumped down a little bit today. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Give the other shows some love, of course. And yeah, that is all the time that we have. So, make sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow is Thursday. The weeks just fly by, like I always say. So until then, I am Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.